Unfortunately, the way the title is written is it's written to address specifically what this ordinance was intended to govern, and that was the poles themselves and the differential between poles on commercial property versus residential property. We could come back with a further amendment of the ordinance, another ordinance with a properly advertised title to add that provision into the code. But that, we really couldn't do that with this without taking it off the agenda, re-advertising it and bringing it back.
Okay. Do we continue it to a date certain then, or how?
No, because we'd have to start from scratch. So my
So
recommendation would be
approve this and
to
then-
approve this, and then we'll quickly put together another ordinance for your consideration relating to the US flag code.
Okay, I think that would be
I
appropriate.
think that would be fine.
Then I'll move approval.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, to approve ZA 03-17. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Okay, so we're gonna come back with another ordinance with the proper title that includes,
You know what, let me, if you don't mind, I was just reading the last numbered 8 paragraph, and even though it doesn't quite fit within the title, I would not see anything that would be prohibited to amend number 8, which talks about, and, because this is somewhat consistent with what the flag code suggests anyway. Right now, it says, what is being proposed says, all flags or banners must be maintained without missing letters, fading, or being tattered or torn. And I think we could add in there a statement that the city recommends adherence to the US flag code.
Then I'll amend my, if that's acceptable, a protocol, or do we need another
do
amendment?
we need a,
Or we
because
need
we just
another-
approved this as is, so what do we need to do procedurally to add that in?
Can we do it on second reading?
Well, no, you can do it right now. I mean, we're still within this, in the same meeting. How about a motion for reconsideration?
Okay,
Okay, I'll have a motion for reconsideration of,
ZA 0.
yeah,
Then I'll second that again.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second, to reconsider ZA 03-17. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously.
so I'll move approval with the addition of it on item 8 to add that the city recommends
Adherence to?
adherence to the, was it US sign code? or,
US
flag code?
Flag code,
What's the name of it?
What's
I
the
actually have it.
precise
good, thank
title?
you.
It's second. 1 second. Notes. It's the United States flag code.
There you go.
United
Thank you.
States flag code, yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve ZA 03-17 with additional language in number 8, adherence, city
Recommends.
recommends adherence to the US flag code.
A second.
We have a second with Jahab. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. So we'll have another look at this at the second reading.
Yes, okay,
Yeah,
Yep, and make
Okay.
sure that we're all comfortable with it.
okay.
We're strongly urging and recommending. Okay, next we have ZA 04-17.
yes, and this also is the first reading of an ordinance that I read by title only. An ordinance of the City of Punta Gorda, Florida, amending Punta Gorda Code, Chapter 26, Land Development Regulations, amending Article 16, Application Review and Approval Requirements, amending Section 16.10, Application for Variance, subsection, I think that would be 1 or L.
L.
Thank you. Amending definition of existing buildings to provide for relief for property owners needing to clear title, providing for conflict and severability, and providing an effective date.
Good morning again, Lisa Hannon, interim zoning official. The item was brought before you in January of this year and then went to February Planning Commission for discussion. We've drafted the ordinance based on comments, and the ordinance was reviewed by Planning Commission in April, and staff and Planning Commission recommend approval of the proposed ordinance.
So the change is
The
this one
change is-
sentence?
Yes, ma'am.
Questions for Lisa before we open the public hearing? Okay, this is ZA 04-17. If you would like to speak on this ordinance, now would be the time. Please make your way to this podium. State your name. You have 3 minutes. ZA 04-17. Anybody like to speak? Last call. ZA 04-17.
Motion to close the hearing?
Second.
We have a motion, a second to close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Move approval of ZA 0417.
Second.
We have a motion, a second to approve ZA 04-17. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously. Next, we have ZA 05-17.
This is the first reading of an ordinance, which I'll read by title only. An ordinance of the City of Punta Gorda, Florida, amending Punta Gorda Code, Chapter 26, Land Development Regulations, amending Article 8, Section 8.11, Property Maintenance, subsections A, B, C, and D, clarifying the intent of those subsections, amending Section 8.11E3, correcting a scrivener's error, amending Punta Gorda Code, Chapter 9, Public Nuisances, amending Section 9-12, Appearance and Maintenance Standards, subsections A1, A2, A2B, A2C, and A3, concerning standards for exterior building walls, amending Section 9-12 by deleting subsection B relating to rear and side walls and renumbering accordingly, amending the new subsections 9-12 B2 and B3 for clarification purposes, deleting window areas, amending subsection 9-12 D2 regarding display windows and incorporating said provisions in the new subsection 9-12B and the new subsection 9-12 B4, deleting subsections 9-12E relating to canopies and awnings and renumbering accordingly, amending new section 9-12C providing for maintenance of roofs and roof structures, amending new subsection 9-12E relating to maintenance of auxiliary structures, amending new subsections 9-12F1 and 9-12F7 relating to maintenance of vacant lots, amending new subsection 9-12G relating to temporary coverings, providing for conflict and severability, and providing an effective date.
Good morning, Lisa Hannon, interim zoning official. These are a lot of housekeeping issues in regards to property maintenance, falling under the land development regulations under Chapter 26 as well as Chapter 9 and 9A, or Chapter 9, I'm sorry, just to get some clarification for better interpretation for our code enforcement.
This was quite a robust discussion the first time, so
Yeah.
any questions, comments before we open the public hearing? So we're sticking with the 20% of the
That's-
roof.
Yes.
I have just a suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
Under section 9.12, appearance and maintenance standards, under B, the new B, number 4, we've removed the reference to canopies and awnings as a subtitle. So in item 4, we go into just what are these exterior fixtures, and we don't have the word canopy in there anywhere. Can we add the word canopy so that it's just stated? We've added
I don't
awnings
think it
is
would
there,
change the
but
title,
canopies is
do
not.
you?
No, I'm not worried about that. I just want to make sure it didn't change the meaning. I mean, I don't see a real problem with it. I think we just took out the canopy and awning in separate provision there because we were able to cover it elsewhere, but.
Correct.
yeah,
But in item 4, we go display windows, entrances, signs, lighting, sun protection, awnings, porches, security grills. Just add the word canopy.
Yep.
Because we took it out before, so just put that in there in that
Okay.
sentence. And then I think it helps address what the planning commission was suggesting.
Okay.
Makes it a little bit more broad.
Yeah.
I would be okay with that. Questions?
Lisa, just a question. If someone, obviously, a lot of this is complaint-driven. If someone gets a notification from code that they are in violation, let's just say the roof is dirty, is there a way, once they get a citation, is there a way that they can come back and have an appeal process before it has to go to the code enforcement board?
Don't they have 30 days in here?
But if they, for some reason, can't do that, if they are out of state, or whatever the reason may be, is there a way that they can have an appeal process?
We start with a courtesy letter, giving them usually 30 days. All they have to do is call the code enforcement office, speak with that code officer, say, I'm out of town, I don't want somebody on my roof while I'm out of town. Can I have 90 days, or can I have till I come back in the fall? We work with everybody. It's a courtesy. A lot of them it is complaint driven. We are proactive. We are out there. We see it. When we get a complaint in that certain area, then we continue to, but of course, this has kind of been on hold till we get this resolved with this ordinance. But we work, they don't have to appeal anything. They can just request. Now, if they're requesting 2 years, that's a little bit
Right, obviously.
excessive, but we know people don't like to have people on their roofs when they're not there. They want to be able to supervise that. You've got a lot of tile and metal roofs that need special care when people go on there. So we do our very best to be, to work with people.
Okay, and the other question is there a way for the code official to determine what the actual percentage of the problem is? I mean, I still have an issue with this, and I still believe it's subjective, but like, you know, if there's little meters that sense, you know, the level of moisture for other projects, is there a way that they can determine the percentage for a roof?
We don't have those tools except to do an aerial and try to do a square footage. And again, it is subjective, and to try to determine the area is 20% of the entire roof.
Well, when we start going back out and monitoring this a little more closely and talking to the citizens who are in violation, there's going to be a huge problem with finding a pressure cleaner company to come and clean your house. Because I noticed after I had my meeting Monday here, there are hundreds of them throughout the aisles that are just in serious need of cleaning.
Correct.
So I sense that there's going to be an overload of people not being available, and I think we have to be aware of that.
Right, and we do. We normally try to take a nice or soft approach with this, because we do understand the situation. And our snowbirds are leaving and going back north now, and it will be difficult to contact everybody, so.
Sure, okay.
And I think 90 days is generous, because if it's already triggered, 3 more months after that, it's gonna be in an even worse state than it is, you know, when it got triggered, and then they have the 30 days to comply. So I would say 90 days, especially when it is complaint driven. I mean, the neighbors are probably like, what, why aren't they taking action, you know? So I'm for being lenient, but there comes a point where they need to hire a contractor. And I think there's lots of pressure cleaners and other ways to clean your roof. Some
we
people
can-
do it on their own. I mean, different ways to get it done. I'm still okay with the 20%, because I thought in our conversation before that we talked about the way the house may be facing the sun or whatever, that it may be one problem area, but not a large, you know, the whole roof. It could just be one quadrant of it. And I think 20%, if it's almost 1/4 of it, would be an easier way than having aerials and time and, you know, put more money into figuring out whether or not they meet the 20%. Gary?
On the time constraint, last year we just did our roof, and I had no problem getting 3 bids and getting it done in a timely manner. But I am cognizant and certainly empathetic to the fact, as Lynn points out, we're gonna have people, you know, they're not here all year round, or, you know, and the balancing act is that we're a friendly place, and sometimes neighbors don't get along, and one neighbor may use it more as a gonna get you, and that's, I think, what we want to try to address. And I think that, you know, our staff is gonna want to, is empathetic towards that too, versus the person is, you know, I wish you'd do that. Okay, I'm sorry, we will do it fall when we get back. I understand why somebody doesn't want somebody up on their roof in August if I'm standing in Minnesota, but it's the 80-20 rule here. The way the ordinance is right now, it's gonna, 80% of the time, it's not gonna be an issue.
Yeah.
And there might be 10 or 20% of those people they're just in a mood, you know, and want to get their neighbor. And I think we can deal with those on an individual basis.
Yeah.
Did you have any comments?
No, I
Are we
think
open?
that the way we have it is fine, and I understand all the the nuances. I actually appreciate all that you have done to accommodate residents that are trying to do the right thing. And all the different situations we encounter, but and I understand what can happen with residents getting
Yeah,
in the
because
neighborhood, so it happens.
And in reading the weed section, I mean, there was a house, I'm not gonna say where it is, but they actually have like the vines growing on the house, and it doesn't look bad, but I don't know that we want every house in GGI to have the vines growing all over the front of it. So, I think, case by case basis, that things need to be looked at. Okay, this is ZA 05-17, property maintenance. Roof mold, would you like to speak on percentage of roof mold? Now would be your time. Please make your way to the podium. State your name, you have 3 minutes. Anybody? Last call, anybody like to speak on ZA 05-17?
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion, and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Move to approve ZA-05-17.
Second.
We have a motion, and a second to approve ZA 05-17. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously. Next, we have a resolution.
Yes, this is a resolution which I'll read by title only. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Punta Gorda, Florida, approving a substantial amendment to the 2016 Community Development Block Grant Action Plan for the City of Punta Gorda, as amended by City Council of the City of Punta Gorda, Florida, and providing an effective date.
For the record, Joan LeBeau, Urban Design, and staff would like to withdraw this item at this time. Under the current item, that staff did amend the plan to utilize the unused funds from previously approved programs, which were canceled due to delays or inactivity in those programs. The $14,000 that was identified in the unused programs will be used, if approved by HUD, for the purchase of meeting room furnishings for the new Operation Cooper Street program. That will be dealing with social services, and Chris Zimmer did touch on those previously. In discussion with the Miami HUD offices regarding the city's withdrawal from the 2017 CDBG program, this action plan came up in discussion. And on Friday, May 12th, they indicated that the purchase of that the furnishings would be ineligible for funding through this program. However, discussions with them later on, as late as yesterday afternoon, they indicated that the furnishings may be funded through a special economic development activity criteria. So we are currently in touch with HUD, trying to identify how the program could be amended to include those furnishings. But as we move forward, due to the withdrawal from the city's withdrawal from the 2017 program, we will need to come back and re-amend the action plan again to include the Fresh Market Garden money, since the city will be funding that in the future.
Okay, so we need to wait until we hear from HUD and get approval on what we can and cannot do and how much money we actually have, then we can
Right,
move forward.
And this may not be done tomorrow.
correct. It's been difficult getting in touch with them. It's been 3 weeks getting some answers. Now that we have that communication, though, they did respond within 3 days, so we were happy about that.
Okay, so we need a motion to withdraw, or just don't
Yes.
do anything with
Oh,
it?
well, it's on the agenda, so a motion to withdraw would be, or to table,
I motion that we withdraw item number 5
or to table.
at the table. Okay.
Okay, we're tabling
I'll second that.
the resolution. We have a motion, a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried unanimously.
We do have one question. We are on the agenda because it was advertised for June 7th. We do have to come back, David, on June 7th and do something similar, or?
I think that we can simply just put on the agenda that the item has been tabled.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, next we do have one quasi judicial public hearing, V 05-17.
Yes, anyone who will be providing evidence or testimony on this item This is a request for a variance. Please rise and be sworn in by the clerk at this time.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in today's proceedings? I do. When you come to the podium to testify, please state your full name and indicate you've been sworn.
This is V-05-17, a request for a variance by David Baker, agent for Colony Point, Inc., pursuant to Chapter 26, Section 16.10 Punta Gorda Code, and Chapter 6, Section 6-28B Punta Gorda Code to allow the existing condominium development to remove and reinstall an existing driveway structure that is 40.5 feet wide at the entrance of the condominium development instead of a maximum of 24 feet wide as is required per Chapter 26, Section 10.3 H7 Punta Gorda Code, and that said driveway is 2.3 feet from the property line abutting a waterway instead of maintaining 6 feet of sod abutting the seawall as is required by Chapter 26, Section 3.13E Punta Gorda Code for property located in the general multifamily 15 units per acre GM-15 zoning district and addressed as 1 Colony Point Drive.
Thank you.
Good morning, Lisa Hannon, interim zoning official for the record, and I have been sworn. I'm going to bore you and read my staff report. The Colony Point condominium development was designed in the early 1970s, and based on the condo plat, the drive was designed with the total width of the entrance 50 feet wide, which includes the pillars at each side and a center pillar with narrow drives on each side of the pillar. Due to the need to accommodate sanitation and emergency vehicles, the roadway has been widened somewhat over the years. The application and survey both note Variance A and Variance B. As when we originally reviewed the aerial, staff was concerned that the parking area was within 6 feet of the seawall. However, upon receipt of the survey, the parking area was shown at 8 feet back from the seawall and 11.6 feet from the actual property line. Since the parking lot is only on the ground and not a vertical structure, there is currently nothing in the city code that prevents a parking lot from being closer than 20 feet to the seawall. So the area noted as Variance A does not need a variance, and this report is only in reference to Variance B. Number 1, that special conditions or circumstances exist which are particular to the size and characteristics of the land, structure, or building involved, which are not applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same zoning district. The original land plat for this area was platted in 1958 as a single parcel extending from Colony Point Drive, then called Flamingo Drive, past Hibiscus Drive to Bluefish Lagoon, as shown on Plat Book 4, page 54. The plat was amended in 1959 per Plat Book 5, page 45A, showing individual lots platted where the condominium development now stands. In 1971, the area was again replatted, creating Tract D to accommodate a condominium development on a single parcel per Plat Book 11, page 1. The condominium plat was certified in April 1972 in Condo Book 1, pages 17A and 17B, showing the plan for the driveway configuration. Based on what it is today, much of the planned paved area increased in actual development. Additionally, in 1972, the city code did not have maximum driveway width, and there was no provision for setbacks from water bodies. Number 2, the strict and literal enforcement of the zoning regulations would create an undue hardship as distinguished from a mere inconvenience on the property owners. Physical handicaps or disability of the applicant and/or other considerations may be considered where relevant to the request. Finding number 2, the strict and literal enforcement of the zoning regulations would create a hardship for emergency and sanitation vehicles to access the site. Criteria number 3, that such hardship is not shared generally by other properties in the same zoning district and in the same vicinity. In reviewing older aerials of Punta Gorda Isles as it was being developed, this condominium was amongst the first few that were constructed in Punta Gorda Isles, and different development standards were in place. The restrictions for setbacks to the seawalls did not occur until 1981. The minimum 6 feet of sod abutting a seawall was adopted in 1986. Criteria number 4. The granting of the variance would not be injurious or incompatible with contiguous uses, the surrounding neighborhood, or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. Finding number 4, the condition is existing and accommodates sanitation and emergency vehicles to the development. Therefore, it would not be injurious to or incompatible with the surrounding neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. Criteria number 5, that the variance requested is the minimum modification of the regulation at issue that will afford relief. Finding number 5, as this is an existing condition, the request is the minimum modification of the regulation at issue that will afford relief. Criteria number 6, the condition giving rise to the requested variance has not been created by any person presently having an interest in the property, and/or the conditions cannot be reasonably corrected or avoided by the applicant. Finding number 6, the condition giving rise to the requested variance was created in 1972 when planned and developed. And the request is to allow the removal, repair of subbase material and replacement in the current location. Criteria number 7, the variance requested does not involve any use which is prohibited in the district where the property is located. And this variance does not involve any use that is prohibited in the district. Criteria number 8, the requested variance is consistent with the City of Punta Gorda Comprehensive Plan, and it is not in conflict with the comprehensive plan. The following are the conclusions. Conclusion: as the development was originally constructed in the early 1970s and to ensure access by emergency vehicles and sanitation, the width of the driveway is necessary. Consensus of the Punta Gorda Isles Canal Maintenance Advisory Committee was to recommend the applicant bring the property into compliance, to recommend the hardship be verified, to recommend the seawall be evaluated by an engineer before and after construction, to recommend execution of a hold harmless agreement. Board of Zoning Appeals recommended approval of the variance and that the hold harmless agreement be carefully written. In the opinion of the fire marshal, which was attached to the agenda item, the existing driveway should be maintained at its current width to afford safe access by fire apparatus into the site. A reduction in the existing driveway width will increase the potential risk for damage to emergency response vehicles and private property. Recommendations. Based on the above conclusion, staff recommends approval of the variance request and has drafted the following hold harmless verbiage for council consideration. Number 1, if the seawall and/or seawall cap is damaged during construction of the driveway replacement or within 1 year of the driveway construction or at a time frame recommended by canal maintenance or city council, Colony Point Condominium Association will be responsible for the cost of replacing the driveway, seawall, and/or seawall cap at that time. Number 2, if the seawall and/or seawall cap survive the driveway construction and were to fail at a time frame to be determined by council, after completion of the driveway construction, the City of Punta Gorda will bear no financial responsibility for the repair and/or replacement of the driveway. The cost and/or replacement of the driveway will be borne by the Colony Point Condominium Association in full.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, the driveway needs replaced.
Correct.
Okay. So, what is the status of the seawall at this time? What is the age of it? What is the condition of it?
I'm going to defer that to canal maintenance.
Okay.
Good morning. For the record, Kathy Miller, Canal Maintenance, and I have been sworn.
Thank you.
Gary Disher, Public Works Analyst, and have been sworn. Yeah, the condition of the current wall during our last assessment, it was an original wall. It has been replaced from the north down to just about where the driveway is. They decided not to move forward anymore with the wall construction due to the proximity of the driveway there. Original 1971 wall, it does have condition issues. It does have cracking in it, along with the, it's not on the work program to be replaced anytime soon because we've got other wall in the system that needs to be replaced, prior to this.
So on your red, yellow, green, is it red or yellow?
It's yellow. It's a monitor, so
Okay.
we are monitoring it. That's why it's not in a current work program to be
Okay.
replaced. Plus, the impacts of to the upland infrastructure, if we were to go in and replace it, as we currently replace walls with the removal and then reinstallation. There are other ways to do walls. You know, we've successfully done wall in front of wall. It's a more expensive process here. We couldn't dig back into our existing dead men. So we may have to go to a man array anchor system, which we've just used on another project. What we'll find as we're driving the anchors, you know, we may have to bring the angle of the anchor down deep enough to make sure we don't find any existing infrastructure, you know, pipes, things like that right there.
So like in your opinion, the replacement of the driveway, how arduous is that gonna be on the seawall? I mean, is it going to,
Well, if they remove the pavers and then they pull up the soil cement base or whatever's there, I'm not sure how deep the existing dead men are. If, you know, as we're moving that material around, is that what is helping hold the wall in its current location? You know, not sure until you open up the surface there.
is there any way is there any radar or anything to go down to look, to ping it, to
The
find
ground
out?
penetrating radar, I'm not sure what they'll find. I'm not I know there is ground
Yeah, I
penetrating
know,
radar
I know,
we've
I've
used
seen
for
it
it.
at the World of Concrete, actually.
Yeah.
Um,
So I'm not sure how that works through, you know, a hard packed surface like bricks and things. I've seen them use it on raw ground, but as for under asphalt, I'm not sure. I'm sure the technology's
True,
there.
yep. Okay, other questions?
That's concerning.
And our
Very concerning.
existing dead men are typically 16 to 18 feet back from the face of the seawall.
But
And
we're
we don't-
talking 1971. What was the process in 1971?
Just that, you know, they were back, you know, 16 to
Okay.
18 feet or so back. And then they're typically 2 feet, well, typically, I should say, 2 feet below the top of cap is where you'll find the top of the dead man block, and then it goes down from there. And then they're typically on every other panel, about a 12-foot center. Every 12 feet, you'll have another dead man, and then with the dead man rod going back. And sometimes we're successfully able to cut those dead man rod closer to the wall, weld to them, and then use that to tie into our existing cap, so we don't have to go so far back onto the property. Now, the man array system I mentioned earlier, that was done because we couldn't get any closer because we had swimming pool right there, so we couldn't dig back, and when we went to test tension on the rods, the dead man rods pulled loose or they were rusted off, so they were, you know, we couldn't get back to the original blocks.
So how much distance do you need for those, the man array?
Well, the man array, it's, basically you're just opening up, 3-4 feet behind the cap to dig down to be able to pull that wall up. If we leave the wall there and sheet in front of it, we'd have to pull all the existing riprap out in front of the wall first, drive the panel in front, remove the cap, and then you'll drive the man array rods. It's basically like a hydraulic hammer. It's like a Danforth anchor plate. They push that rod down with a hydraulic hammer. Once it's in, then you hook up hydraulics and pull it back. The anchor plate rotates, and then that gives you your tension. You have to use a lot more of them, per se, but you can adjust the angle accordingly based on engineering for your soil loading and stuff, which you're going to try to hold back.
This sounds very complicated. Gary?
I mean, that's where I was going. I think there's a couple of issues that we need to be talking. One is do we want to approve the variance? And I'm inclined to say, yes, we need to work away with County Point to let them have the safe driveway and so forth, but I have concerns.
Okay.
This isn't, in my mind, the same as when we were talking about a lanai that it was 1974, was a nice stable piece of concrete that wasn't gonna be altered anywhere. There's a lot going on here, and you have a seawall that is under yellow, which means you're watching it. So just to take numbers, it may have seen 80% of its life at this point. So it's not a new seawall, but you're doing a lot of new stuff here. And sometimes it may not need to be replaced yet, but sometimes it may be wiser to replace it early when you've got all this other stuff going on. And I think there needs to be a way for us and the County Point folks to sort that out so that it's fair to the city and fair to them, and that everybody gets what they want. So I don't know how to do that. Okay. And that's not our preference. I think you hopefully everybody can come to us with a plan on how to do this in a respectful and straightforward and fair manner for us to consider. Because just by the fact the fire department says they need that access to make it really properly safe, that's enough to say, okay, we need to have the variance. The question is, how do you sort that out? I don't know.
And they have, Colony Point does have a presentation, so.
Okay. I just wanted to understand from the fire marshal's perspective, what is it about this entrance that requires the width?
For the record, Jennifer
I think I know,
Molnar,
but I just want to hear it.
Fire Marshal, and I have been sworn. Currently, the way the driveway exists, you'll see that there's a little island in the center. And so right now, some of our apparatus with longer wheelbase, some of our fire trucks, we have to enter the property on the seawall side of the driveway. That's the widest part of the driveway in order to make that turn into the property. So any reduction in that current existing width, which I think is approximately right around 17 feet right now, would hinder us from being able to safely navigate into the property.
I see. So is any, no. I guess as I read through all this, what keeps coming back to in my mind is, why is the island still there? I just keep coming back to that.
There are utilities in that island. I received an email this morning from Mr. David Baker from Colony Point. There are city water lines, both for fire plugs and resident use. I'm just reading from his email. It used to be a pumping station with a building over it to pump water to the third floor, as city pressure was insufficient in 1972 to get to the third floor
In
So-
that island?
in that island.
Ay, ay, ay.
Now, I'm going to defer to our utilities manager, director.
Good morning, Tom
doing a lot
Jackson.
of
For the record,
deferring
I
here,
have been
Lisa.
sworn. Yes, there are. Where the island sits today, at one time, there was a high-pressure pump to boost pressure to the third floor of the building. With the new water plant and the better pressures, that system has gone away, but there's a spaghetti network of piping under there that is theirs. It does not belong to the city. That's on their property. It's their pump and their piping. And we would love to figure out, all of us, including Colony Point, would love to figure out how that was plumbed back in when that change occurred. And so we're excited if they do get to take the pavers off, we can once and for all see how the pipes run, but that's why the island still exists.
Are we ready to hear from the applicant?
Sure.
Go ahead.
One quick thing. This has been going off to the side a little bit, but in regard to the seawall maintenance here, it may be the airport may have equipment which can do this, because when doing like I know in the day it used to be, if there were copper cabling, other cabling underneath the runways, that they have equipment which they can do that it's not so invasive. I'm just thinking if this is an issue we have to look at long-term, if there's any metal, let's say, in the understructure with seawalls, maybe that's an application. It's kind of off the wall, but I do know they're able to sense through concrete without having to be so invasive. And airports generally from the telecom side would have that kind of equipment. Something.
Gotcha. I know, 1971 wall, so it's not if it needs to be replaced, it's when we're going to be replacing it. So we've got a lot of wall in the system that we've replaced that was, put in the 78, even up to the 81 that hasn't made it this long. But we've got some 1965 wall that's out there that's still, still hanging on and still in good shape. So there's no real definite on the clock on when that, we had original, what was it, a 40-year lifespan, and hey, we've made 50 years. Okay, now we got a 50-year lifespan on the original wall, and so every year we gain, we got a new lifespan on that. What we put in currently, of course, is we're hoping to get the 90-plus years out of it.
If we were to make one of the criteria for accepting this, that the seawall gets replaced first, what kind of timing would you need?
I think, well, I'd have to defer back to Kathy on what she has set up, because I believe of this year's budget has been allocated out for, and all the SALs have been issued. But Kathy, speak on that.
Kathy Miller, we could probably replace the seawall sometime in the 2018 work program. The 2017 work program is probably about 60% complete now, and all the homeowners have been notified, so it would be difficult to notify those homeowners and reschedule their work, but we could probably do it in 2018.
And what kind of time do you need to replace this particular section of seawall if you had to do it?
I would say it would probably take us 60 to 70 days to replace that.
How long of a span of the old section? Do we have the linear footage?
I think it was 110 feet.
Okay, that's not too bad.
And here, when I say 60 to 70 days, it all depends on what construction methodology we use. Man arrays will make it go a little bit faster, you know.
All right, you want to hear from the applicant?
Sure.
Okay, we're ready to hear from the applicant. You may make your way, do you have any photos to put up or anything like that, any media to?
No, I don't. Would you like to put those up on
They're up right now.
Yeah.
the? Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Dave Baker.
Can you pull the microphone so it's?
Yes.
Yep, thank you.
My name is Dave Baker. Good morning.
Good morning.
I have been an owner at Colony Point since 1983. I thank you for considering our variance. It's very important to us to maintain our current configuration if we possibly can. I'm prepared to answer any questions that you may have. But first, I'd like to give you a little background of myself and summarize what we want to try to accomplish. I've served on the board of directors at Colony Point for some 8 years and many years on the Building and Grounds Committee. So I'm very familiar with Colony Point. The board of directors appointed me to represent Colony Point with the city and the various contractors to implement this owner-approved project that we have. Colony Point was built in 1972 and 73, as Lisa pointed out. So our facility is 45 years old, and I might add that Mr. Wayne Goff contributed to that configuration, who we honored earlier. This project does consist of removing the cracked asphalt, the deteriorating subsurface, which is soil cement now, and rebuild it to a Department of Transportation configuration as far as the subsurface is concerned. And then we want to go with interlocking pavers on top instead of the asphalt. In doing so, we redesigned the parking lot to minimize traffic congestion by adding some additional parking spaces. And we did this by removing islands that currently exist in the parking area. In addition, we worked with Jennifer, as she pointed out, to improve the traffic flow through Colony Point for all vehicles, including the emergency vehicles. This was very important to us. Jennifer served as our traffic engineer, and a very good one, incidentally. As a result of sharing this effort with the city administration, they pointed out to us that we needed this variance at the entrance area. And we respectfully request your approval to allow us to maintain the current configuration. I'm prepared to answer any questions that you may have on the subject.
Who put this drawing together? That's up there right now.
We at Colony Point basically did. It was surveyed by Mr. South, Robert South. He put the drawing in, built the drawing, or drew the drawing itself on a computer.
Okay, so you haven't really had an engineer or anybody of that expertise out there to look at this project?
We believe that what Jennifer has provided us in a way of traffic information is very important and very practical to us. We
Right.
believe that she has served as our traffic engineer.
Okay, I mean, I'm pleased with that aspect, the accessibility for the safety vehicles. I'm just worried about how deep you're gonna have to go when you start peeling back all these layers.
We are going down no farther than 11.5 inches. In some cases, we don't have to go down that far.
And who's told you that? A contractor or?
No, we had an engineer by the name of Universal Engineering and Science Company out of Fort Myers to evaluate our configuration as it stands. by drilling 8 different locations throughout the parking lot and describing to us what we needed to do to establish a satisfactory parking parking configuration from a structural standpoint.
Okay, so they drilled down to figure out how much base you had,
And what was down there, that's correct.
and they even drilled here under the brick pavers?
No, they did not.
Okay, and that's the part that is the most concerning, because it is the closest to the seawall.
That's correct. We intend to remove those pavers that's currently there and see what we have underneath and work with the city relative to that subject.
Gary?
I have a question that may require both you and Tom to respond to, and it may be a nonsensical one, but regarding the island, if the island has got this spaghetti amount of plumbing from 1974, there's no need further for the high-pressure pump. In the process of doing this project, could that plumbing be cleaned up that the island might be able to be removed? And would Colony Point consider doing that?
We would like to maintain an island of some sort. Doesn't have to be that specific configuration for 2 reasons. One, we think it's a safety factor for people leaving the facility as well as coming in to separate them. And secondly, the reason, obviously, that it's still there is because of the plumbing configuration.
Sure. And I appreciate that point, but we also have the concern that if there's an issue with the seawall and so forth, I'm just saying that sometimes you have to make a compromise. And I'm just asking if this is something that could be done or not.
Tom Jackson, my understanding is, yes, it could be, but it is their piping on their property, so
Understood.
we're not requiring them to do that.
Okay, so I'm only just floating this out as a concept. If their concern is large enough and valid enough that we're about regarding the seawall, is that a compromise that Colony Point could be willing to?
It's something that we could work out, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Question I have is, how soon are you, if we were to grant this, how soon are you going to start the work?
We have started the work on the areas that's not affected by this variance. We expect to be there within 3 weeks in that area.
Okay, so then, and we would not be able to work on the seawall until next fiscal year, so that our timing would not be in sync. So it's possible that even if you did do work on that part of the driveway where the seawall is, we would have to, there would be a problem.
There's a lot to say.
So, yeah, so I'm just trying to figure out how, if we were able to not have the island, then we would be able to have more area where this, at least where we think we would need to maintain the seawall. I'm trying to figure out how to do the best thing for you all.
I would like to introduce Sherry Robinson, who's the president of our association currently.
State your name and that you've been sworn, please.
Sherry Robinson, President of Colony Point. I have been sworn.
Thank you.
One thing I'd like to just clarify before we continue to talk about changes to the front. The other thing with the island is it has our sign that identifies that it's Colony Point. We have future plans to make it gated with some gates coming down. That would be the natural split for that. So we will be very hesitant to take that island out. We can reconfigure it to make it thinner or whatever, so we'll look at different options for it. We're not married to the idea of keeping it at its current configuration. However, the discussion earlier about is it possible that we would get on the list for 2018 to have those seawalls replaced? We would certainly consider postponing finishing the project. We could run all the way to that point. It makes a lot of sense if it's possible to get those seawalls replaced in 2018, to wait to finish it until the seawalls are in, the new pins are in, then we can commit, because from our point of view, while it would be an additional expense for us to finish it, and then next year have to pull it up and then reinstall it. So, so I think that we would, if we can get a guarantee that we'll get on the list for next year to have those seawalls out, since they are aging and they're starting to crack, then we would certainly consider postponing finishing the final entrance area and just come to that point. Because as it sits right now, it is pavers. Everything else is asphalt, so we could come up to the paver line with the new pavers and the new subsurface, and then finish after the new seawalls are in as an alternative, and that kind of takes care of everybody's problem.
Sounds reasonable.
Yeah, that sounds,
That's a very
I
good
mean, we're not adversarial.
It's a win-win, right?
Yeah,
Oh, and every department we've worked with so far, Dave has been a great advocate for us, and you have been a great advocate to understand why we all love to live in Punta Gorda, because it really has been a very collaborative process. So we're willing to do, this sounds like the best possible solution, right? So I just wanted to put that out there.
Until the engineer talks.
If I could, Mark Gehring, Public Works, and I have been sworn. When it does come time to replace the seawall, 2018 or whenever, there's going to be quite a hardship at that front entrance there, at their only entrance, to maintaining emergency access to the site. No matter which repair method we take on, we are going to partially block that lane that is required for the fire department vehicles. So we would like to see that island removed. This is the time when they're reconstructing the parking lot to remove that island, get that mess cleaned up. And then in the future, we should be able to maintain 6 foot of clearance there when they take the island out, still getting fire vehicles in, and that would clean the problem up. That's what we would like to see.
Yep, Lynn?
I have a question for Jennifer. Can you tell us approximately, and I'm not asking you to pinpoint, but can you tell us over the last 5 years how many times per year you have to go into that area with vehicles?
Jennifer Molnar for the record. I don't have those counts, what we're, the average calls going into Colony Point. I can tell you that I know that Zone 3 does run out there probably once or twice a month for medical calls, but I don't have an annual count that's accurate at this time for the calls inside that site. We do go out to do annual fire inspections for the fire hydrants and the fire protection systems that are inside those buildings right now consistently. Once a year.
That could be timed in accordance with the construction, I would think, right?
It can be, and I would also like to mention that the fire department would also be in favor of, removal of the island as well, to allow the minimum 20 feet of clear width, which is what fire code currently asks for fire apparatus access into a site. And there are traffic control signals that can help you visually identify the separation of lanes in the future without having to have the large island curbing in that space. So we also would be in support of removal of the island in the future.
Gary?
Okay, so I just put, I believe I heard from you that you're not married to the fact that your desire is to have an island, but you're not married to the fact that it has to be this size island. You said you want it for security reasons.
That's a fair statement,
and
yes.
for your sign and so forth.
Yes.
So, and I'm just throwing this out. So, and Mark's point is very well made. We've heard that if we had our preference, the islands would be gone. But you have a desire to maintain it for a security reason and also for a sign reason. So you have a valid reason, I believe, for consideration. But you're not married to the old island.
Correct.
So the question would be then is, in the process of doing this project in conjunction with the seawall, and I guess this is to Mark, if the island is gone for that period of time while we're doing the seawall maintenance, is that something that would be acceptable from a construction standpoint?
Yeah, our Mark Gehring again, Public Works. Our main concern is during the construction for our particular purpose.
Okay, so then the compromise would be is if we could come to an agreement where you would alter the island appropriately in the long term, eliminate the island for the short term of the purposes of the construction. Though the fire department would prefer to have the island completely gone, it still would be functional, have to be done in a coordinated way so that when the island is reestablished, it would be that. And it would also give you guys a chance to clean up your spaghetti plumbing at the same time. So that could be also a win-win.
Mm-hmm.
If we could follow that type of logic criteria. Because you're flexible in the timing that you do this, and so we would just have to coordinate with you when we do everything, and everybody could pretty much get what they want.
All just with the clarification that the point would be to move up from yellow to red and do the replacement of the seawall in 2018. If that's the first thing that has to happen for this plan to work, then yes, we could temporarily remove the island while the seawalls are being put in, reconfigure it to be as narrow as we can get it so that we have that separation, have the location for our sign, and then put it back, and then finish the paver project and install a